Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing a highly requested tutorial on how to make these cherry earmuffs, which I originally posted about on my TikTok account. I do sell these on my online shop, but I know that purchasing handmade items is not always budget friendly, so I wanted to make my design accessible. If you want to see more of my designs or tutorials, feel free to follow me on my socials and subscribe to my channel. Let's jump into the tutorial. For this project, I'm using the Carrion 1 pound medium 4-weight yarn in rose and grass green. You can use any type of yarn for this project, and I actually recommend using a chunkier yarn because it makes this project go a lot quicker. The first time I made this, I used Bernay Softy Chunky yarn, and it only took me about a couple of hours to make. So in addition to yarn, you're going to need a crochet hook in a size that corresponds to whatever yarn you choose, a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, and something to use as a stitch marker. This project is comprised of 3 parts: the band, the earmuff, and the leaves. To make the band and the earmuff, we will mostly be using the single crochet stitch and a slip stitch to join the rounds on the earmuff. For the earmuff, we will be working in the round. The leaves use single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and slip stitches. If you're a complete beginner and have never tried crochet before, I would recommend looking up some YouTube tutorials on how to do these stitches before getting started. That being said, I do think that this project is relatively beginner friendly, and I did my best to make the tutorial as simple as possible. Before we get started, I think it's helpful to have a quick overview of the project. To create the earmuffs, we will be using single crochets to create a circle measuring about 4 by 4 inches by working in the round and using increases and decreases. We will use rows of single crochet to create the band and stitches of alternating height to create the leaves. So we're going to go ahead and get to work on the earmuff part. Start by doing a slip knot and place that on your hook. You're then going to chain 3. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Place your stitch marker on the chain, and then we're going to slip stitch into the very first chain. So as you can see, we've started to form a circle. We're now going to work in the round. So chain 1, and then place your hook right against that stitch marker, and we're going to put single crochets right into the middle of this circle. So insert your hook, yarn over. You have 2 loops on your hook now. Yarn over again, pull through both. So now we're going to do this 6 times. So go ahead and pause the video if you need and put those 6 single crochets into the middle of this. So now that we've finished those 6 single crochets, we're going to go ahead and take that stitch marker out of the center, and we're going to join all those stitches together that we just did. So go ahead and count back 6 stitches in order to find that very first stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're now going to insert your hook, and it might be a little tight, so feel free to wiggle it around a little. You're then going to yarn over, and instead of yarning over again, you're just going to pull that through to do a slip stitch. Now that it's all joined, we're going to do our first round. So what we want to do is again count back 6 stitches in order to find the first one we want to put our hook into. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to put 2 single crochets in this first stitch. So that's 1. And we're going to put a second one in that same stitch we just did. And we're going to put our stitch marker in that first stitch we made so that we don't lose it. And then you're just going to do 2 single crochets into each of the 6 stitches. So when you get to the end, you should have a total of 12 stitches. So go ahead, insert your hook, yarn over again, pull through 2. Insert your hook, yarn over again, pull through 2. So like I said, you're just going to keep doing this until you get to the end, and you should have a total of 12 stitches. So we've now reached the end of the row. We did all 12 stitches, and now we're going to join them together by taking out that stitch marker and doing a slip stitch into that stitch. Now that we've joined it together, we're ready to get started on the second row. We're going to put 1 single crochet into that first stitch. We're then going to take the stitch marker, place it so we don't lose that first stitch. And in the second one, you're going to put 2 single crochets. So that's 1 and 2. And then in the next stitch, you're going to put 1 single crochet. In the next one, you're going to put 2 single crochets. So that's, and this is 2. So as you can see, there's an alternating pattern of doing 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet. So go ahead and pause the video and put in that alternating pattern of stitches until you reach the end, and then we'll meet back up for the next row. We've just finished that row, and we're going to join the rounds now by doing a slip stitch. And for this next row, we're going to do an alternating pattern of doing 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So go ahead and put your first single crochet in that first stitch and grab your marker so we don't lose it. You're then going to put another single crochet into the next stitch. And now you're going to put 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So let's do that again. You're going to do 1 single crochet. You're going to do another single crochet in the second stitch. And then in this third one, you're going to do 2 single crochets in the same stitch. And you're just going to continue that pattern again until you reach the end. So again, that's 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So go ahead, pause the video if you need, and complete that row, and then meet me back for the next one. Now that we've finished that third row, I'm sure you can see that there is a pattern to how we're increasing this circle. Each additional row that you do, you add a single crochet. So for example, we did 1 single crochet and then 2 single crochets in the same stitch. For the next row, we did 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets in the same stitch. For the next row, what we would then do is 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, so 3, and then 2 single crochets in that next stitch. So instead of doing every single row, I'm actually going to put the information on the side of the screen so you can go ahead, take a look at that, do the rows on your own, and then we'll meet back for the next step. Now, I used a weight 4 yarn, and as you can see on the screen, I stopped at the row where I was doing 7 single crochets. Now, if you're using a chunkier yarn, you may stop at 5 or 6, depending on the size that you want. If you're still unsure about how many rows to do if you're using a different yarn, I recommend, doing a couple rows, holding the circle up to your ear and, just seeing how big you want it. And once you get to that desired size, you can go ahead and stop. It's really up to you and how big you want your earmuff to be. So this is what going up to the 7 crochet row looks like. As you can see, it's 4 by 4 inches, and this is just the size that I like. If you want it bigger or smaller, you can do more or less. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put single crochets into every single stitch. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a little bit of a height. So you're going to do this 4 times. So 4 rows of single crochets into every single stitch. And if you're using a chunkier yarn, you might not need to do 4 rows. You may only need to do 2 or 3 rows. So just use your judgment. We're looking to create a little bit of a height. So yeah, just go ahead and do your rows of single crochet, making sure, of course, to slip stitch when you get to the end, and meet me back once you're done for the next step. I finished those 4 rows of single crochets, and as you can see, our circle is a little taller now, which is perfect because that's going to allow us to put some stuffing into this earmuff a little later on. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a series of decreases in order to close up the earmuff. And if that sounds scary, it's a lot easier than it sounds, I promise. I'm going to show you guys how to do that if you don't already know. But what we're going to do is we're going to put in 6 single crochets, 1 crochet for each stitch, and then we're going to do a decrease. So here is the first single crochet, and we're just going to put our stitch marker in so we don't lose that, of course. And we're going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so now in these next 2 stitches, we're going to be doing our decrease. So go ahead and insert your hook into the next stitch. Yarn over. Now you have 2 loops on your hook. And instead of yarning over again, we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, keeping those 2 loops on that hook. Yarn over. We have 3 loops on our hook, and we're now going to pull that loop through. And so by doing that, we're basically joining 2 stitches together, which decreases the overall amount of stitches. And since we just put a decrease in that stitch, we're going to go ahead and skip and put the next stitch into that one. So we're going to do another 6. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so I'm going to show again how to do that decrease. So insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, you have 2 loops on your hook. Insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through that closest loop through. And so you're just going to keep on doing this all around this row until you get to the end. So go ahead, pause the video, do that series of decreases, and meet me back for the next step, which will just be a simple row of single crochets. Okay, now that we've finished that row of decreases, as promised, the next step is a very simple row of single crochets. So go ahead and end your previous row with a slip stitch, and we're just going to put 1 single crochet in every single stitch until you reach the end of that row. Once you've finished that row of single crochets, I'm going to put the info for the next steps on the side of the screen instead of showing you each row because it does get pretty repetitive. But you can already see with just this first row that we've already started to kind of close up that hole on the earmuff, and we're going to continue doing that by following the steps that I'll put on the screen in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you what the earmuff will end up looking like. So as you can see, it's almost like completely closed. If you're using a chunkier yarn, you may need to do less rows. Ultimately, what you're looking for is about an opening of almost 2 inches, a little bit less. So here are the next steps that you're going to need to complete the earmuff. Go ahead and pause the video, finish up these rows, and then meet me back for the next section of the project, which will be the band. To make the band, we're going to start with a slip knot and then place that on our hook. We're then going to chain 7. If you're using a chunkier weight yarn, you may need to chain a different number. Ultimately, what we're looking for is a length that will cover the opening in that earmuff. So for reference, this chain measures to be about 2 inches. So as long as your chain measures 2 inches or however long you need it to cover that opening, you should be good to go. Now that we have our desired length of 7 chains, we're going to go ahead and add 1 more chain. And we're now going to do a series of rows with just single crochets. So go ahead and put your first single crochet in that second loop from the hook. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, pull through both loops. And we're just going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch until we get to the end. Now that we've reached the end of the row, we're going to start another one by chaining 1, and then we're going to do a single crochet in that very first stitch. We're now going to repeat the process of doing 1 single crochet in every stitch, and you're just going to keep doing rows and rows of single crochets until you finish the band. I recommend doing rows of single crochets until you reach a minimum length of 40 inches. I like to go a little bit longer, but I'd say 40 is the minimum that you need to be able to tie it around your head. For reference, this is what a band of 40 inches looks like. But I like mine a little bit longer, so I went up to 46 inches. So here's my completed band. So far, we've finished the earmuff and now the band. So now that you have these 2 components, you can set them aside, and we're going to work on our final component, which is the leaves. Before we get started, I'm just going to give you an overview of what we're going to be doing to make the leaves. We're going to be using stitches of different heights to create this leaf shape. So we have single crochets at the end, and then we have half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, which is the longest stitch in the middle, and then we have again double crochet, half double crochet, and single crochet. And this is going to create that increasing and then decreasing shape that we need to make the leaf. If you don't already know how to do those stitches, I would recommend looking up some tutorials before getting started on the leaf part. But if you do know, we're going to go ahead and jump into it. So do a slip knot and put that on your hook. Make sure to leave a really long tail because we're going to use that later to sew the leaf into the band. We're now going to chain 7 plus 1 for a total of 8 stitches. Now that we have the right amount of chains, our first stitch is going to be a single crochet. So in that loop right there, go ahead and put your single crochet in. The next stitch is going to be a half double crochet, which is just a little taller than a single crochet. So go ahead and yarn over and insert your hook into the next stitch. Yarn over, pull through. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3. And as you can see, we've already started increasing, which is just what we want. So the next stitch is a double crochet, so yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over again, pull through 2, yarn over again, and pull through the last 2. The next stitch is a treble crochet, so yarn over twice, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, you should have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over again, pull through 2, and pull through 2 again. We're now going to add 3 more treble crochets in that same stitch for a total of 4. So yarn over twice, insert your hook, yarn over again, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. So go ahead and do that 2 more times. Now that we've finished those treble crochets, you can kind of see the leaf shape coming together. And so now we're going to start decreasing in size. So go ahead and do a double crochet into the next stitch. And your project might start curling up at this point, that's okay. We're now going to do a half double crochet, so yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over again, pull through 3 loops. And then the last stitch will be a single crochet. We've now finished half of our leaf, And now we're going to be working on the stem. So in order to do so, we're going to be chaining 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're then going to slip stitch into the very first chain. We're going to repeat the pattern of stitches that we just did, so put a single crochet in that first stitch. The next stitch is a half double crochet. Place a double crochet into the next stitch. And then 4 treble crochets in the same stitch. Next stitch is a double crochet. And then a half double crochet. And lastly, a single crochet just into the top of the leaf. And that is the completed leaf. If you want a bigger leaf or smaller leaf, you can chain less or more in the beginning. Just be sure to leave enough room so you can complete that increasing and then decreasing pattern. Like all our components, we're going to finish this off by cutting the tail and pulling that through, and then you're going to do a knot. And you're going to repeat this process to make a second leaf. Now that we have all of our completed components, the last step is to assemble them together using our tapestry needle and some pieces of yarn. This step is optional, but before we assemble it, I'm going to add some stuffing into the earmuff to give it a little bit of volume and help keep my ears a little bit more warm. You can use anything to stuff your earmuffs, such as yarn scraps or even fabric. The first step to assembling this project is figuring out the earmuff placement, so I recommend tying your band around your head how you would normally wear it, and then go ahead and take the earmuff and kind of place it to where you would want it to go. So for me, it's right about there, and then go ahead and kind of place your hand there, pinch it, take it off, and that's where you're going to want to sew the top of the earmuff to. And you can go ahead and put a stitch marker there. Now that we know where we want to sew our earmuff to, we're going to go ahead and cut a really long piece of string, and then we're going to tie a couple of knots at the end. Grab the other end of the yarn and thread it through your tapestry needle. You're now just going to sew the two pieces together. I recommend inserting the needle from the back, going through the band first, and then attaching it to the earmuff. Continue sewing the band to the earmuff and go all the way around, always making sure that the band covers this hole so that none of the stuffing escapes. I recommend sewing to the very end of the earmuff. I think this makes a better fit. After you sewed on both earmuffs, we're now going to attach the leaves, so go ahead and pinch them together and take both tails and thread them through your tapestry needle. Find the middle of your band, insert your tapestry needle, and thread the tails of the leaves through the band. Adjust the leaves and then continue sewing them down to the band. And that is the finished product. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I would be so grateful if you could hit that subscribe button and share this video with any of your fellow crafters. I do plan on uploading some more tutorials in the future, and if you do end up making this, I would also love to see it. Feel free to tag me on TikTok or Instagram if you post any videos.